Such a great audience. Teenagers can be challenging. How many of you have a teenager at home, or maybe you work with teenagers as a teacher or a coach? I see some head nods and okay, yes. Yeah, teenagers can be challenging, but we can probably also agree that a lot of cool stuff happens when you're working with teenagers, in the struggle. As a practitioner of transformational learning, my favorite educator moments when I see that light bulb go off, that aha moment in a student. When the thing you've been working on them for months finally clicks and they say something like, maybe I should just stop complaining and just suck it up and do it. And you're like, yes, this is what I've been trying to tell you for months. But for them, it's a moment of self-discovery. And that was the case for two students I met a few years ago, Kate and Maddie. I was in charge of a student leadership conference in Washington, D.C., and for 7 weeks during the summer, about 300 teenagers, ages 15 to 18, would come to Washington, D.C. for this conference. And we would room them with other students that they did not know. This was intentional. We did this by design. It was to get them outside of their comfort zone. Those of you with teenagers know that sometimes they don't like getting outside of their comfort zone. So they would try to get re-roomed so they could be assigned to the rooms with their friends. And that was the case with Kate and Maddie. They didn't know each other, had been assigned to rooms, and apparently there was some trouble. There was some big disagreements about the thermostat, and one of them kept turning it way up and the other way down, and they couldn't come to an agreement. So they came to me and they said, Mr. Currie, we can't be roommates. We aren't compatible. We don't have that roommate energy, the things that teenagers say. What they didn't say, but we all knew to be true, was what they really wanted was to get reassigned so they could room with their friends because, that's more comfortable. But there was something that I knew that Kate and Maddie didn't. So we all had a little meeting. We sat down and I told them that I understood the situation about the room temperature and the thermostat, but there was something they should know, something that I had confirmed with the hotel management, that on this particular floor of the hotel, this section where we house the students, all of the thermostats had been disabled. In fact, they had been disabled this entire time. The room temperature had never changed. So I asked them, what if it's not the room temperature that's making you uncomfortable? So we sat with this question for a minute. Then we had a conversation about why we room students with other students they don't know, the purpose of getting outside of your comfort zone at conferences like this. And Kate and Maddie stayed roommates. And a few days later, it was apparent that a bond had been forged between the two. I mean, there were selfies and hugs and bracelets that matched and tears. They had become friends. And what had started out as a very uncomfortable situation had transformed into a very meaningful one. What they experienced is called transformational learning. And it's one of the most powerful tools that we have in learning today. And we all have experienced transformational learning. It's not just for teenagers. And here's why it is so powerful. When many of us think of learning, we think about learning something new, like learning a new skill or a deposit of information, like learning a new word. Some of us might think of cumulative learning. That's learning that adds to something that we already know. That's learning how to take those words and turn them into sentences, and those sentences into paragraphs, and paragraphs into pages. But transformational learning, that doesn't just change what we know, it changes how we know. It doesn't just change what we know, it changes how we know. It's like learning that words can be used to motivate and inspire people, that words and sentences can have power and purpose. And according to Jack Mesereau's theory of transformational learning requires a key ingredient called a disorienting dilemma. Now, we've all experienced these disorienting dilemmas before. These are the moments that stop you in your tracks, the ones that really make you think. Sometimes they can be small moments, like maybe you're going to go out to dinner with your friends and have an evening out, and you forget your cell phone. And at first, you're very uncomfortable. But then, as the evening progresses, you start to feel that it's kind of liberating not to be tied to your phone. And so then you start to wonder, like, what does that mean about me and my phone and our relationship? Or sometimes it can be really big moments. Like maybe you lose someone that's close to you. And for the first time in your life, you realize that sometimes those that we love are taken from us before we're ready. It's very disorienting. These experiences cause dilemmas. And the research shows that the stronger the dilemma, the greater likelihood of transformation. But there's one really important thing to know about transformational learning, and that is that disorienting dilemmas alone are not enough for transformation. Other things have to occur to complete the learning cycle. And that's why we need practitioners of transformational learning. Those of us who not only seek transformational experiences for ourselves, but want to cultivate it in others. So if you're a professor, or a teacher, or a coach, or a manager, or a parent, or a mentor, you too can be a practitioner of transformational learning. And we desperately need you to be. Because a lot of the norms in today's society actually run contrary to transformational learning. So here's how you can become a practitioner of transformational learning. And 3 easy steps. Step 1, curate disorienting experiences. We need our learners to experience something new that takes them outside of their comfort zone. It puts them in a new place. Sometimes this is physically, like traveling abroad, or maybe they visit a nursing home for the first time. Maybe if you're a teacher, you take a group of students to visit the Holocaust Museum. Maybe if you're a manager, you assign one of your direct reports to a new task or a new project that you know is outside of their normal area of expertise, outside of their normal domain, but you do this because you want to see them grow and develop. But as you're curating these experiences, there's one thing you have to keep in mind. You can't force transformation on anyone. You don't have that power. Just like you can't force open the petals of a flower. But what you can do is you can plant seeds. You can cultivate an environment that encourages those flowers to bloom, that encourages that transformation. And this work is so important because today we live in echo chambers. Our news media is custom fitted to tell us a lot of what we already know, a lot of what we already believe. It's like the phones in our pockets and our hands know exactly the stuff we want to see and the stuff we don't want to see, because they do. Rarely do we even spend time with people listening and learning that are not like us. And that's why we need practitioners of transformational learning. That's why we need people that can help our learners experience something new, something that can take them outside of their comfort zone, something that can put them in a new place. So we need you to take them on trips, to tell them your stories, to share with them your wisdom, so the learner can step outside of their own little world and into the spaces of discomfort, because, well, that's where the real growth begins. Curate disorienting experiences. Step 2, facilitate discourse. Discourse is required for transformational learning. Remember, the learner is grappling with something that has the potential to rewrite all of their prior knowledge in this part of their life, this certain area of their life. So the brain's going, whoa, 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 whoa. We need to talk about this. The brain is wanting to have a conversation. I mean, think about your own transformational experiences, the ones that really change the way you see the world. I bet you had some conversations about that. Often it's the kind but bold questions that were asked from our friends and mentors. These kinds of questions, this kind of dialogue, well, it requires compassion. It requires empathy and understanding. And we have to be willing to listen. Today, this kind of discourse is in trouble because a lot of our dialogue happens online, and it's run by algorithms. And those algorithms were designed to keep our attention. And it turns out that we spend more time online and we expend more energy when we're angry and when we're upset. I call this the algorithm of outrage. It's all about attention. It has nothing to do with dialogue. Real dialogue, the kind that's required for transformational learning, it takes empathy and understanding. And empathy and understanding take time. But when we're online, we're incentivized to respond immediately. If you don't reply or react to a comment or a post online, if you don't do that immediately, it's like your reaction doesn't count. And that leads our dialogue to becoming transactional, not transformational. And that's why we need you, as practitioners of transformational learning, to ask really thoughtful questions, to lean into dialogue, to encourage your learners with empathy and understanding, to ask them about their perspectives, and more importantly, to ask them about where those perspectives come from. Facilitate discourse. Step 3, protect time for processing. Transformational learning takes time. The things I believe about the world today have evolved. Think about some of the beliefs that you have that have changed. Did it happen overnight? Did it happen all at once? Even in a week? No. It took time. We need to let our learners sit in their dilemmas and process, even if they're wrong, for a little while. In 2008, I was a contractor for the United States Army. I was part of a consulting team. It was part of Operation Iraqi Freedom, was what it was called at the time. We were interviewing farmers. One day I was in a Humvee as part of a caravan with the military, and I heard a loud pop. It was an explosion. An embedded explosive device called an IED had exploded on our caravan. I can remember the confusion of that moment. The smoke, the soldiers talking frantically to one another on headset. After some time, they had assessed that no one had been injured by the blast, thankfully. But they wanted to know who had planted this explosive device. So we sat there for what seemed like forever, until outside of my window, I saw that they had detained a young Iraqi man. He looked to be about my age at the time, about 22 years old. And he had a family. I could see through the window his wife holding 2 little children. She was crying. It was a very disorienting experience for me. Later that evening, we were discussing the incident, the consulting team I was on. On that team were 2 professors, Dr. Shin and Dr. Briers. They were much older and wiser than I. I made a comment. How could he be so stupid? How could he plant this explosive device? I mean, he had a family. Dr. Shin questioned me. Blaze, he looks to be about your age. Have you thought about this from his perspective? Why might he do something like that? I hadn't really thought about it. But I did that night. I thought about what it might be like to be a young father in Iraq trying to feed your family during a war. Wondering where you should pledge your allegiance. Wondering who was going to be around when the war was over and all the smoke cleared. A few days later, we were interviewing an Iraqi farmer. He held in his arms his young daughter. She was adorable. She appeared to have Down syndrome. He was holding her and loving her and showing her off to us. I was surprised. I remember saying, I can't believe that here in Iraq, a father would be taking care of his daughter this way and showing her off. Dr. Briers was quick. Well, Blaze, what did you expect? Do you think fathers here didn't care about their daughters? Why did you have that expectation? As I was having these disorienting dilemmas, I had really good mentors who asked really good questions. And over the span of several months, what I believed about the culture of Iraq and the people of Iraq changed. In fact, what I believed about people from other cultures changed. Because I changed. Too often, we do not give people the time to change and grow. It takes the monarch butterfly, an insect, 2 weeks, 14 days, to emerge from its cocoon fully transformed. Yet we expect people to change their opinions and perspectives on really complex issues in the matter of minutes. We take important topics, flatten all nuance, make hashtags, and you're either for or against. No time for discussion, no time for reflection or processing. Protect time for reflection. Protect time for processing. We owe that protection to those that we lead, that we teach, and that we mentor. We can all be practitioners of transformational learning. And to have the kind of pluralistic society we want, where the diversity of ideas and discourse can thrive, we must be. You can change the world for someone if you can help them experience something new. Create space for rich conversation. Give them time to reflect and process. When I think about the power of transformational learning, I'm reminded of something Dr. Breyer said to me. I can change the world because I can change. And when I change, so does the world. Thank you.